yet again. They have made some big waves by agreeing to invest $100 billion in OpenAI. And this may seem like, oh, this is yet another development in the AI space. That is positive signals for the AI community, right? Everyone's bullish on AI, more AI investments. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, here's where it gets a little tricky. What do you think OpenAI is going to be doing with those $100 billion worth of money that Nvidia is investing in OpenAI? Where are all the tech companies? Where is most of the spending of all these big tech corporations getting funneled into for the last several many quarters? It has exclusively been, for the most part, capital expenditures. And whenever you hear capital expenditures in the big tech manosphere right now, translate that to buying GPUs from specifically Nvidia. And Nvidia isn't really shy about what, and Nvidia and OpenAI, neither one of these companies are really trying to hide this fact, right? The deal is OpenAI, and over this isn't going to be a lump sum payment, this is going to happen over a period of time. And OpenAI is going to take this money and they are going to use it to deploy their clusters of GPUs for inference and training their OpenAI models. And this is going to translate to about millions of GPUs being bought specifically from Nvidia. And it is going to lead to a 10 gigawatt usage of AI capabilities. 10 gigawatt mostly being the number in terms of the electricity consumption that is going to be used for this project when it is fully online. If you need a comparison for how big of a usage that is in terms of electricity bills, that is the usage of all of New York City's energy needs during a peak hot day, during a peak day in summer when everyone's out and about and doing things. So that is a mind-boggling amount of energy that is going to be used to keep the lights in this project running. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this is concerning. I'll get into why this is concerning for Nvidia first, and then we're going to talk about what this means for the broader AI economy. Nvidia's been taking hit after hit lately, right? I mean, at the start of this year, Nvidia faced some very strict export controls in the chips that it was sending to China, which accounted for 13%, it still accounts for 13% of Nvidia's revenue, right? And it was able to strike a deal with the US government where it agreed to be like, all right, let's loosen up these export controls. We're going to send maybe not our best chips, maybe not the top of the line Blackwell chips, but we're going to be sending the next step down category of chips to China. And we're going to be giving the US government a portion of the sales as a commission or whatever. So there was a nice deal that was struck to still make sure that Nvidia was able to sell to the Chinese market. Because China is the other country that is going super hard on AI, and they are building AI on Nvidia chips. Well, not anymore, apparently, because China very recently has announced that they want to impose a ban on their side of the use of foreign chips in very critical AI applications. This is terrible news for Nvidia, because Nvidia already is overclocked, no pun intended, on how much it has saturated the hardware stack in American markets, right? It is trying to find ways to expand globally, and China is contender number one when it comes to a global market it can expand into. But if China closes its doors on Nvidia, how does it continue to meet the demand, or how does it continue to make revenue year on year from these homegrown tech companies that already have these great contracts and already have bought so much in GPUs from Nvidia? Well, you can contractually obligate a company to buy chips from you, right? And that's kind of what I think they've done with OpenAI. They have struck this deal where OpenAI has basically agreed to buy, like not $100 billion worth of Nvidia chips, because a lot of this is also going to be invested into setting up data centers and building the cloud infrastructure to allow these chips to send data back and forth from, like OpenAI servers and to the clients and whatnot. But at the end of the day, all of this is going to be built on Nvidia GPUs, millions and millions of Nvidia GPUs. So in some ways, this is Nvidia just making sure that its revenue tap doesn't dry up. The other thing that is pretty concerning to Nvidia, and this is the bit of news that I feel like has been going under the radar, Google is historically, for a company of its size, for a company that's so pervasive, its breakthroughs are tremendously underplayed, right? Google, obviously, is the company that's credited for coming up with the GPT models, for the generative predictive transformer models that underpins all of LLM technology today. They are nowhere near given the amount of credit they deserve for bringing that technology to the forefront. The other thing that Google is mostly not advertising very well is how much progress they've made in the rollout of TPUs, tensor processing units. Did you know that most of the demands, most of the compute on AI chips currently comes from inference instead of training? Training is when you're actually building these models, when you're feeding these models tremendous amounts of data, and you're teaching these models to become these large language models, the training phase. And then inference is when you actually use these models, when you and I type in a query to ChatGPT or Anthropic or Claude or whatever and get a response back. The vast majority of AI usage is due to inference these days. And Google is working on custom making, not working, they've currently already delivered their Ironwood line of TPUs, tensor processing units, which are custom tailored to be super efficient specifically for inference, right? And a lot of Google Cloud's infrastructure, a lot of Google's AI processing currently relies on Google's own TPUs. And to make matters worse for Nvidia and all the other AI companies out there, the Gemini version of AI models, which is Google's answer to ChatGPT and Claude, the Gemini line of models is expected to be the best AI model, according to prediction markets, by the end of this year. So Google definitely is leading the race in terms of, hey, we have the best models potentially, and we have a chip that is custom designed for inference, for using our chips. So you better watch your back, Nvidia. So Nvidia definitely, for a good reason, is on a bit of a back foot right now. It's a bit of a cornered animal in some ways, although it's a behemoth of a company, but there's definitely some headwinds that aren't looking too great for Nvidia. But I want to also talk about why this trend is a bit concerning for the AI industry at large. When the dot-com bubble happened, when everybody was very aware, well, nobody's aware when they're in a bubble, but in retrospect, when it was evident that the dot-com bubble was a thing, there was a lot of funding activity that was pretty much just cash trading hands between the companies in the dot-com space. A lot of these internet companies were either investing in each other, money was trading hands to just give the illusion of a lot of deal-making activity. And I fear that this deal looks very close to that kind of activity, where money is just, like OpenAI is more than capable of raising funds on its own, and that the tranched investment that OpenAI would have made in acquiring these NVIDIA chips could have happened organically with as per OpenAI's own needs. I mean, OpenAI is already invested in building the 5 gigawatt Stargate project in the middle of UAE. So OpenAI is very much capable of raising funds, and that's a $500 billion project. OpenAI is very much capable of raising its own funds in order to take on massive projects like that, right? So this does kind of smell of a little bit of a bubble. But again, I think there's a bit of a stretch. There's a chasm of difference between an overhyped market. The market operates in hype cycles. The market rarely, for new technology, is able to adequately price it right? So there's going to be a lot of hype, and it is impossible for AI to come with no hype at all. So it is a bit of a leap to claim that, just because the market sort of missed the mark on what the adequate value for these AI technologies is, means that there's a bubble. I'm not saying that, but it kind of smells like there might be a bubble brewing. But the other thing that is a bit of a counter argument to there being an AI bubble is the fact that these AI companies are making revenue. Anthropic boosted its revenue from $1 billion to, I think, about $5 billion. Maybe it's per quarter or annually. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But they 5x'd their revenue. And these are real users. These are real enterprises that are striking deals with these AI first companies because the model integrations into their workflows, into their products, are giving them real savings, are giving them real revenue, or giving them real benefit and real value, right? So hard to say that AI is still a bubble, but this deal seems a little sus in my books. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video.